All right. Welcome to Insurrection with Brenton Lengel. Used to be a radio show. Now it's a YouTube channel because I just decided that a radio show was too much work. And then I made it even worse by adding video. So I am a playwright, an anarchist, and I am also the author of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. Which was just nominated for 2 Ringo Awards. Second issue is just about out, and I just got the proofs for the Reign of the Blood-Covered King miniseries. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm also really excited because, hey, it's Vadim. This is Vadim from the channel Creationist Cat. I've been a big fan of. And Vadim, do you want to introduce yourself to my audience, and in case they haven't been familiar with your work?
Sure. My name is Vadim, otherwise known as Hey, it's Vadim. Some people believe I am indeed Creationist Cat, but that's just a crazy conspiracy theory. I am often on the channel Creationist Cat, which for your listeners who are familiar with me, we're going to be rebranding the channel sometime soon. I guess I'll go ahead and say that it's going to be to Hey, it's Vadim. CC, that is Creationist Cat, will be a part of it. For those of you who are not familiar with Creationist Cat, it's basically, at least these days, it's very politically, sometimes pop culturally oriented topics through the lens of, say, something like Adult Swim. It's, kind of like weird, edgy comedy, and yeah, it's very irreverent. It's the kind of thing that just really needs to be experienced to get. And we're going to be dropping a new video tomorrow on Mr. Sargon of Akkad.
Oh, great.
It's an exclusive for you, because I haven't really let any, at least the public at large, know that. And yeah, I'm really excited about that video. It's actually it's going to be more in line with the videos that you're going to see when we rebrand the channel, because I decided to do a video on my own without CC before the rebranding. I just felt it was better for this particular topic. But yeah, and other than that, if you guys are interested, you can either find me at Creationist Cat on Twitter, although CC doesn't tweet that much these days. So you can find me at Hey, it's Vadim if you do the Twitter thing.
It's got to be hard to tweet as a cat. You've got the claws, and sometimes they're cut, and sometimes they've gotten really long, and it's just going to mess up everything.
It's an ordeal for him to use a keyboard. It's one of his crosses to bear.
Yeah. Now, what I would describe your channel as, by the way, and we'll talk a little bit more about your channel a bit later in the program, but just for anybody who hasn't seen it, I would describe it as kind of like Tim and Eric meets like Vic Berger almost.
I love that. I love that comparison. I love both of those things. Tim and Eric, I think, is genius. It's slightly more like they are the masters of what I would call, a lot of people call, awkward comedy. Mm-hmm. And we have a little bit of that, but it's like a little more straightforward comedy wise. Like they're a little more experimental, even though that CC is a little experiment. I don't know. Check it out yourselves and determine what you think about it.
I would agree. It's like nothing you've ever seen before if you haven't seen it. So
I love that. That's an amazing compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, no, dude, I remember like coming upon your channel, and I'm like, oh, it's like a skeptic channel that's doing some SJW stuff. I'm looking forward to this. And then I'm like, wait, there's a talking cat. And I really, CC is great in it.
There's a lot of what the fucks with the channel. I commonly, you know what, if you guys are not familiar with it, I would say really, really sit down and watch a video, perhaps watch more than one video, because I think you'll like all of the recent stuff, but because I am more kind of prominent in it. But the thing is that some people just don't get CC at first. I get a lot of comments on my channel that say things to the effect of, you know what, when I first stumbled on this channel, I fucking hated this, but now I'm addicted to it. I love it. And and it is sort of like something that you have to sort of understand, because CC is I hope I'm not over talking here, but
No.
CC is like, a lot of people are like, oh, CC has a cringe voice. Yeah, of course he has a cringe voice. He has a cringe voice by design. It's sort of like SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, that's a cringy voice, but it's fucking great. And
one of the channels that I really love is Cody Johnston's Some More News. I don't know if you've seen it. Yeah. Now
we actually we have a show, a segment rather, called Creationist Cat Chat, and we interviewed in an episode we had. I don't know if you're familiar with the Humanist Report and Benjamin Dixon, but we had one episode where we interviewed all three of those guys.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, you should check that out.
I'm not familiar with the other two. I've been following him and Robert, his friend Robert Evans of Cracked and Behind the Bastards. I've been following them like since they were doing Cracked.
Yeah, I forget. I always forget his name, but I listened to Behind the Bastards, and that is like one of the best podcasts.
Yeah, out there. Period. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of it. It's really taught me a lot. And like Robert Evans, it's weird too, because like I feel like Rob, you've got the Radicalize Me Daddy t-shirt. And I feel like
this is actually I don't know if you're familiar with Kat Black, but she's a great YouTuber. She's really just fucking cool. She makes sort of like just, I guess, video essays where she just talks about just very kind of chill, relaxed things where she talks about various issues. She's trans, so she often talks about those issues, but it's not like I would say that issue kind of defines her by any means. But yeah.
But yeah, like my point was that what's his face? So Robert Evans, I was reading his stuff for a really long time, and Cracked was just like one of the websites I would go to back before they got rid of everybody good on the site. And like around that time, like around 2010 was when I first started identifying as an anarchist, and then I got involved with Occupy Wall Street, and I found out like later when my buddy BZ Douglas of the BZ Listening podcast, which everybody should check out, he interviewed Robert Evans and asked Robert Evans, you know, how do you identify politically? And he told him he was an anarchist. And I'm like, did Robert Evans freaking bread pill me 10 years ago?
Yeah, I actually was listening to, because I listen to Behind the Bastards somewhat frequently. There's way more episodes that I need to check out because there's just like so many. There's like a whole like bunch that I'm like, oh, I gotta listen to that one. I gotta listen to that one. But I was listening to a recent one and noticed that he said that he was an anarchist. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, just kind of the mental journey that I've gone through. But this isn't about me. This is about your show and also your recent debate, which was your first debate on Modern Day Debates, which is a channel I've been involved with.
It is my second debate on there. We can get into it. I don't think I did badly, but I don't think I did fantastically. I give myself sort of a 6, maybe 6.5 out of 10 for the performance. Mostly, the lower aspects of my score that I give because I think that I gave into getting sort of angry with the guy, and I should have just. I learned a lot from it. Like next time that I talk with but by the way, for those of you who don't know, because we haven't said, I debated just a full throttle cray conspiracy theorist. I mean, this guy is like Alex Jones to the 30th power. And he's like 50 bottles of brain force without the brain. And yeah, he was really, it was interesting because I don't know if I told you this, we were, DMing about it, but the dude was very chill and laid back beforehand. And he was very friendly. And He did say something like, "Hey, if I dig into you, don't worry about it. It's just all show." But I just like he had this like sort of like laid back stoner mentality, and then we started, and he was just like screaming his fucking head off, and just I now realize
always trying to cosplay Fox Mulder.
I now realize in retrospect a lot of things that I can do in the future when I deal with people who are similar to him, who are either as out there in terms of just, crazy beliefs, or people who are shouting over at me like a maniac.
Yeah. Well, if I recall, the shouting and the so he reminds me of, there was somebody that I worked with years ago who could keep it together long enough to close their various sales and to be very good at their job, but would completely lose it in any kind of a longer form conversation. So this person actually went in and started a complaint with human resources about this other person that we worked with. And the first email that they sent out was like, the human resource person read this and was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is really serious." Like, and this person's really, and then like they got like 50 emails from the person, and the level that they were disconnected from reality became much more obvious the longer it went. And I felt like the same thing happened with this guy, like just watching his opening statement. He started out kind of saying things in that were wrong, but in a very kind of cogent together way. Mm-hmm. And then the longer it went up and the more things he brought up and the more like, it was just like, it was pure gish galop. And then he started yelling and his voice started breaking. So like that kind of a debate opponent is very, very difficult to deal with, because it either devolves into a screaming match if you don't have a very strong moderator on it who's going to mute people when they do that crap. Or if it doesn't devolve into a screaming match, it kind of can be a, exhibit A, here's my point, this guy's freaking nuts. And if you're trying to engage in good faith in a debate, like you clearly were, and deal with the actual issues, when you have an opponent who will not engage in good faith and will not deal with those issues and will not make the arguments, will just continue to spew out one insane argument after another and get madder and madder, like one of the few ways to deal with that is to just, basically scream at them. And then it becomes cable news, like where it's just one voice trying to go over the other, which nobody really wants to watch, but you at least hold the line there and you don't make it seem like they're making too many arguments, because debate is a performance art.
Yes.
And oftentimes, and I've made this point in a number of other streams. So I do full contact Kyokushin karate.
Yes.
And one of the things that you learn when you're doing this, because they don't award points, or they do, but if you get a point, you win. Is if there's two people who are doing a full contact karate match and nobody gets knocked out and nobody is the obvious victor, what happens is that the judges will oftentimes give the win to the person who seemed to be the most aggressive and threw the most punches. And so like towards the end, when the guy was like declaring himself the winner, and by the way, if you won, you don't have to declare yourself the winner.
Yeah.
I think what he was banking on is the fact that it looked like he was throwing all the punches. And then you were trying to go into the actual thing. That was my impression of the debate overall.
I probably should have called them out for that. I probably should have been like, "Oh yeah," because that's what a true winner does. Is declare the fact that they won or something like that. And
I think you kind of actually went into it a little bit towards the end. But then of course he cut you off halfway through you were saying it.
I was too nice to the guy. It might have been because we had that pleasant chit chat beforehand. I was telling you before I'll just admit this. Really my true regret about because yes, I should have chilled out and that would have been a more effective strategy for me. Another thing that I should have done is that I have a cat at the door. I'm going to let them in as I'm talking.
Let the cat in.
But another thing that I should have done is come on in, come on. That's Cortez right there. Another thing that I should have done is I should have the one of the mods suggested that we go to 5 minute rebuttals. I should have been like, yes, let's do that. But I didn't take the bull by the horns. But what I really kind of regret is he was throwing out some major like JQ, just anti-Semitic vibes. And he tried to cover for it in the beginning by saying like, hey, like I don't have a problem with Jews.
My last name is Stein, which then would mean his name is Alex Stein.
Everything. Kind of a fucking thing. And I should have, to me, that's incredibly despicable. And I should have called that out for what it was. So, yeah.
What was interesting about that, by the way, and it's, so fascism, I forget exactly which thinker said this, but I think it might've been Sartre, was that fascism was the socialism of fools. And I don't think that guy was necessarily a neo-Nazi, but what was interesting was that he seemed to understand some basic problems that we had. Like in his opening statement, he was talking about how we spend too much money on the military, for instance, and not enough, and if you have a socialist, be it a libertarian or even a Marxist framework to analyze society and to analyze culture, why, for instance, we're spending way more money on the military. And it doesn't require this assumption that the Jews are manipulating George Bush,
it doesn't require that. And then also another thing that he kept on saying is that like we needed 9/11 in order to go to war. And I didn't get to make this point, but it's sort of like, no, we didn't. Yeah. The US government can kind of has always been able to convince the public that whatever fucking war they want to go into is like, worthwhile. We did not need 9/11 in order to do it. Certainly it made it arguably a little easier, but even though that they lied about it and weapons of mass destruction, blah blah blah, everybody knows about that. But it just to say that was he was talking about it as though like I think he used the term like it was government mind control or something.
Yeah, they talk about essentially, and this almost struck me as, I don't want to speculate on his past, but he was basically talking about like mind control through trauma. Yes. Which leads me to believe...
I have to say, I think maybe that guy was traumatized by 9/11 and that's why he's so fucked in the head.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people...
to interrupt.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, actually. And you said it, so now nobody can clip it out me and be like, oh, you're being ableist.
I apologize to,
Yeah. Look,
infirmities.
There's a lot of people who have gone through trauma, myself included, who didn't become crazy 9/11 anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists, screeching about it like on the internet. But, at the same time, oftentimes when people get very specific like that, they're telling on themselves. Yeah. And, I would hope that people take that as in the spirit that it was given. So that's the one thing. The other thing, though, that I wanted to bring up was he kept saying, and I actually sent in super chats about this and had to send in another super chat to like correct him on it. And then he just said it sounded like it was bullshit, was that he was essentially using a secular version of the God of the Gaps fallacy to justify like it's like, oh, this happened, I don't have an explanation for it, therefore the government used secret technology to make it happen.
Yeah, I should have called that out as God of the Gaps. I should have just said that. I kind of
didn't know what God of the Gaps was, so I don't know if it would have helped.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have. Others would have. But yeah, I could have just said, if he was like, what the fuck is that? I could have just been like, look it up, moron. I should have another thing I should have done is just, I should have been, I mean, it's funny because like on one hand, I can be really acerbic. I can really hand people's asses to them in videos and tweets and shit like that. But when I'm actually talking to people, and also often when I'm engaging with them online, I try and be as charitable as I possibly can. And then, you know, there's also an aspect to it where with the guy, I felt like a little sorry for him because he's obviously like loco. And yeah, exactly. So all those things, I think it made me more charitable towards him than I should have been. And it's like he's the kind of guy where if you give him an inch, he'll
take a mile.
Take a mile, exactly. Because like at a certain point, I mean, honestly, I thought his points were fucking moronic. But actually, I was talking with a friend who watched it, and he said, he started out with a good brain, but his brain was fed poison. Do you understand? Something like that. He said it more eloquently than that. But that's, you know, some people are like that. I think the guy, if he had, I have no idea what his upbringing was like, but if things were different for him, he could potentially be he has certain types of intelligence, you know?
Yeah.
He can't obviously distinguish that all of these crazy things. I mean, folks, this is a guy who thought that literally all of the footage of the planes that hit the towers were CGI. Like every single, he literally thought that.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, that's just not, like if you believe that, there's a part of your brain that does not confront reality. Like I just, it
strikes me as there was a psychological ruling on this one neo-Nazi that I debated and I read about it because he got like psychoanalyzed by like a court psychiatrist. And they came to the conclusion that he was very intelligent, but had a serious lack of insight. And he had, which I looked that up, like what it meant psychologically. And essentially it meant that he had the physical like disability in the sense that he had a difficulty like understanding why things worked a certain way. He couldn't put two and two together, essentially, despite having a high level of intelligence otherwise.
That's interesting. I think that's one thing that really, in various ways, I mean, maybe this is sort of a tangent, but I think that all sorts of people get hoodwinked or just tricked by people who have a certain type of intelligence. You know, because there's all sorts of intelligence. There's artistic intelligence. There's I forget what they call it, sort of like a sportsman-like intelligence. There's musical intelligence. I mean, there's scientific and mathematical intelligence. But what I'm saying is that like some people just get dazzled by one particular type of intelligence, and then they just will follow someone and be like, "Oh, you're great," and they won't recognize that the person lacks intelligence in all these other capacities.
Yeah.
If you understand what I'm saying.
No, I know exactly. A great example. That's honestly Donald Trump.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. He's very good at like posturing himself as a sort of middle class, lower middle class tough guy. Yeah. And you can see his charisma. He's also very good at talking to people and kind of inspiring them, making them like be a cheerleader, essentially, is what he's good at, because that's what he's done his whole life. You know, he's also a deeply stupid, insane man whose brain is probably looks like Swiss cheese at this point, since his father died of Alzheimer's and he is definitely sundowning. But you know, people don't get that because they have it's like it trips a couple of like, almost archetypical, like they've got like, okay, a person that talks like this and dresses like this is a person to be listened to. And so they just let all the rest in, and they don't none of the other warning signs like let off the alarm that maybe you shouldn't be listening to this guy.
Yeah, with Trump, I think he has a lot of kind of stereotypical senses of authority, if that makes sense. You know, like he, they're very superficial, but to people who don't think past the superficial, they look at him and think like, oh yeah, this guy's a leader. You know, when in fact, I mean, he's just. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's like very much obviously an emperor with no clothes kind of a thing, or an emperor with no brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that.
Well, it was, yeah, I brought it up largely because I just finished a debate against another guy on the channel, Smokey Saint, on Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And God help me, I had to argue for Joe Biden, which I was not happy about. But at the same time,
suck, man. Like I'm with you because I'm totally like I 100% believe that people should, you know, I'm not crazy about Joe Biden for a whole number of reasons, but I wholeheartedly endorse people going out and voting for him. But I just hate these situations where you're in a position where it looks like, you know, you're cucking for the establishment or something like that. And then I'll just say very quickly, I mean, I didn't say it during the debate, but you know, I mean, I guess it goes without saying, since some people know that I like have left-wing politics and whatnot, but it's like I'm in the unenviable position when I'm arguing against 9/11 conspiracy theories of sort of defending the Bush administration, which I implode. So that's not fun. So yeah, I feel you on that. Anyway, go on.
Well, no, I mean, you know, honestly, one of the ways that I was first politically active online, and before I built up all of my rhetorical skills to do the debates that I do now, like I was there, like 9/11 truthers were like my original, like, it's like how I react to anarcho-capitalists today, or freaking Nazis. It's like they'd come in, they'd say the stupidest freaking shit in the world, and like,
can I tell you something?
Sure.
I mean, this is a little story, but I think it's interesting. Kind of many years ago, when you're probably familiar with at the time very popular documentary called Loose Change.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yes, I am.
Yeah. It more than anything catapulted the 9/11 conspiracy theories to just the mainstream, or to some degree of mainstream. And I had all these friends who watched both that and this documentary called Zeitgeist, and they were like, "Dude, you gotta check this out. This is crazy." And I watched them, and I just instinctually, like so much of it, I was like, this can't be true. These things do not make sense. There must be lies in this. But I didn't, you know, I didn't have the ability to debunk these things. And at the time, I've never been like religious in a kind of, you know, like a very conventional sense. But I did have what I would call, say, sort of like new agey beliefs. Like I believed in reincarnation and certain things like that. This is the things that I grew up with, and I sort of was shedding those over time. But anyway, to get to the point, what happened is that this was like right at the dawn of YouTube, around 2005, 2006 at the latest. I just typed in because I saw these, I saw Loose Change and that stuff, and I was like, I need to know how to debunk this. So I like looked up 9/11 conspiracy debunking on YouTube, and I found the Atheist Experience, and they had a few shows, or maybe one show, and it was split into a few segments. where they were debunking the conspiracy theories. And I learned a lot of things that I had never heard of before. I mean, like I had a decent education, but I had not known about, say, for instance, like the concept of peer review and stuff like that. And Matt Dillahunty was talking about...
Clearly the guy you were talking to also didn't know peer review.
Yes. And so I watched that and I got all of these answers, and I was very, I found other things as well, but I was like, oh, this show is interesting. And I started binge watching it. And literally in about 2 days worth of binge watching it, I just said to myself, okay, well, I came to this channel in order to debunk 9/11 conspiracy theories, and I guess I'm an atheist now because they put forth all of these arguments that, not just towards Christianity, but just all these. I saw lots of different claims being discussed, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I can't logically justify a belief in some sort of afterlife. I mean, maybe it occurs, but if so, I look at it as sort of like, well, that's icing on the cake. But my point is that the reason why I think, well, one of the reasons why I was in New York during 9/11, so I was personally affected by it, and I'm interested in it for that reason. But it was one of the things that kind of helped me sort of get on this journey of looking at the world more critically, and there were other things like I used to. I don't know if you're familiar with like things like the I think it's called like some people call it the lemon diet. It's basically like or the lemon fast. It's a fast where you go like a few weeks just drinking lemon, cayenne pepper, and grade B maple syrup. It's horrible for you.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrible for you. But I would do it for I did for 18 days one time.
Wow.
And yeah. And I would actually go to websites, and I would see people like saying like, hey, I'm a doctor, this is horrible for you. And I would be like, oh, what do doctors know? I didn't really have the like kind of critical tools to understand that most doctors, not all, some are dumb as fuck.
Yeah.
But when there is a consensus on something, usually you should trust it. And it improved my life, I would say, by being able to look at through things through well, this word has been so tainted by the online community and shit, but through a skeptical point of view.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I don't mean like YouTube skeptics. I mean people like James Randi and Carl Sagan, and just the people who really kind of initiated the movement and yeah. But anyhow, yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I have more knowledge. There were more things that he brought up that if I had time, I would have been able to successfully debunk. I had there were some things that just went by so quickly that I couldn't remember them. And then there were other things that I was like, okay, I can explain this, but it's going to take a few minutes to explain it. And he's said so many fucking things. He gished out. So I have to pick my battles. And then if I spend like 3 minutes saying something, I know he's going to
just jump in. And
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mentioned that just to give you a little bit of knowledge about like my journey in terms of, I don't know, getting to be someone who I'd like to think that I am somewhat reasonable. Yeah,
you seem like a very reasonable guy. So absolutely. And yeah, I did the sort of YouTube atheist skeptic thing for a couple of years. I'm actually, it's interesting. I'm actually a practicing Buddhist now.
Right.
Yeah. Though, and it's really interesting because, like, you brought up reincarnation, and I do believe in reincarnation, but I have a feeling that the version of reincarnation that you were believing in before the atheist thing is different than the version that I kind of believe in.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like, I have no problem with like thinking that it might that might be the case. I just I don't
Well,
have,
here's the piece that you're missing.
yeah.
Yeah, this is the piece that you're missing. So when Westerners come at, and I didn't know we'd be talking about reincarnation on this. When Westerners come at reincarnation, we come at it from a Christian perspective, where we have the idea of the immortal soul, or the ghost in the machine, as you heard from, like, I think it was Socrates. Like we have this idea that we are not our bodies. That we are something within our bodies. Like, we use the phrase, I came into this world.
Right.
Yeah. The fact is that with the Buddhist doctrine of Anatman, no, there's no soul. There's no self. You didn't come into this world. You came out of it. And so the consciousness that we see that evolves within a person, it's something that the universe is doing at this point. It's like how Carl Sagan famously quoted Alan Watts saying, we are the universe experiencing itself. So if you think of reincarnation in the sense that energy, like matter, can neither be created nor destroyed, you think of it more as one big soul. Everything that there is, from the rocks to the grass to me to you to the internet, everything constantly reincarnating in a flux. And so you can see how that is reincarnation. And then, like, with the idea of like individual reincarnation, you'd think of it more as not a soul or a continuity being carried from life to life, but in the sense that you look at a passage of music and you see, like, you see harmonies and themes coming back. And
Sure.
so we could, so the idea essentially is, what's great about this, and somebody in the chat actually just said, somebody asked if you were Angry Joe. No.
Somebody said that in the comments of that, like, a few people said that in the comments of, I've been getting that lately. Maybe I need to fucking shave or something, because that's not a compliment. But anyway, go on.
No, it's good. But the other one was, somebody said that sounds very depressing. And yes, it sounds very depressing to a Westerner, because you are attached to the idea that we are this ourselves, that we are this body, that there is something, that there is an individual here. But the fact is that the individual is, in my opinion, and somebody said, no, it's thought slime.
Well, I get that all the time too. I'm like his twin brother.
Yeah. Well, anyway, like, the individual is the dream, and the real being is the everything. And one of the things that you realize once you do this and become a little less attached to your ego is you realize, one, how harmonious it all is, and that the discords of your life and the discords of people's lives, are like the markings in marble or the stuff. And two, you never die. Sorry.
Okay. No. It's fine. I'm sorry to cut you off. I was going to ask you, if, because, like, if I'm not saying that necessarily the the point of, or just, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not saying that this is something that you intrinsically should get out of the belief that you hold. But it's sort of like, for most people, religious, any somewhat religious beliefs are comforting. And so what I was going to ask was, how, because what you described to me, that's not very comforting. Because it's sort of like, I mean, it's not like I thought that, like, I get reincarnated and I have, like, all like, I get reincarnated and I have any idea of who I was as Vadim Newquist, but still, like, I think my perception of things back then was that somehow there was still more of me in this. So my question to you is, do you find it comforting? And if so, why?
Yeah, actually, I find it incredibly comforting, largely because, I've had issues with, so I was raised Catholic. I had no idea we would be getting into this. This is fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
I was raised, I was raised Catholic, though I was also raised to be a little heathen. My mother finished reading me the story of Abraham and Isaac, and she ended it with "That's awful. I can't believe God would do that to a parent." So, and my mom kind of literally, I have this statue of Budai here. This was my mother's that I played with when I was a kid. And so one of the things that I sort of realized when I began to realize that the ego isn't real, the self isn't real. It's just how things happen to have come together for 40 to 80 years, from cradle to grave for this, is that I essentially, for this consciousness, I can have a great time as myself, but I'm not limited to just myself. I literally exist as the flux, the everything that there possibly is. So when you realize this, you realize, one, you never die. You never really die. You are the eternal thing that appears now as John Jones, now as Mary Smith, now as Betty Brown. So it goes forever and ever and ever. You get to be all of the heroes, all of the villains, and everything in between. It's really the best of all possible worlds.
Okay, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Because one of my beliefs, for some reason, and I guess this was something instilled to me by my mom, who also had kind of new agey beliefs.
Yeah.
I believed that every time that you reincarnate, that you reach a higher state of being. Mm-hmm. So potentially in your belief system, could you be reincarnated and be a piece of shit next time? Just be I don't know, potentially, no offense, but I don't know, a Nazi or the next Hitler,
yeah, definitely.
Okay,
yeah. All right. So I mean, here's the thing, first off, and this is another thing, I would really highly recommend, especially if you like Carl Sagan, to check out Alan Watts.
I read one Alan Watts book when I was in high school, and I enjoyed it. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But he talks in one of the things about even if you were reincarnated as a fruit fly, obviously to you as the fruit fly, being the fruit fly is the thing to be, fruit flies obviously have a high culture. We can't even recognize it because we're humans, not fruit flies. But you can sit there and say, oh, look at her, looking at a female fruit fly. Look at the way the light glints off her wings. She's got real style. So obviously, if you're reincarnated in a quote unquote lower form, well, you still feel that you are an important person. You feel that you are kind of there and now, and that who you are is the thing that you should be. Now, if you're reincarnated as someone who becomes a Nazi or someone, that does horrible things.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Buddhists call fundamental darkness. In the sense that it stems from the problem that we don't realize that we're all connected. And because we don't realize that we are all connected, we start to think that we are ourselves and only ourselves. And we start to think that we can gain by hurting others. And so Donald Trump, perfect example, is, he has a Buddha nature somewhere buried deep inside him, but he is very deluded by it. Ultimately, am I the same as Donald Trump? Yes, in the great sense of the whole thing, but that also comes from the Hindu belief that essentially and Buddhism grew out of Hinduism, everything the God had. If you take you're familiar with the concept of Spinoza's God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's everything is God. So Spinoza's God is basically another way of saying Brahman, and the idea is that Brahman sleeps. And sleeps, doesn't literally sleep. And the world that we experience with consciousness and complicated human beings and grass and internet and everything, this is essentially the dreams of Brahman that are created through Maya, which maya being like illusion, but think of it like the entire universe is a drama. And not just the drama, but also like the audience and the rigging and the scenery. And when you get to the end of the drama, people get up and they clap for the villain because there has to be a villain or there can't be a hero. So I would say that the intensely negative things in life and like the real instances of absolute evil, there's something that needs to be battled at all times, because they are essentially the universe hurting itself. As a kind of sadomasochism. But on a higher level, when you look at that, when you look at like the evils that exist, they exist in a way that there is a polarity to existence. And I'm very much a believer that nothing is either good nor evil, but thinking makes it so, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I'd say I would certainly not want to be inside Donald Trump's head. Like, it actually makes me shudder to think about it. And I don't think Donald Trump likes being inside Donald Trump's head either.
He doesn't seem to.
Yeah.
He's very insecure.
But anyway, yes, I'm sorry. That was like really heady and intense. So
no, I find it fascinating, actually. I mean, and it's you know, something that I've like I have heard that there's one YouTuber. He's sometimes a bit of an asshole, but he's still like he has a lot.
YouTuber is a bit of an asshole. What?
He still has a lot of interesting things to say, and he is. I think he says that he's still a Buddhist. Like he used to be a more like a Buddhist who believed the more, for lack of a better word, religious claims of Buddhism. And he still kind of holds certain philosophical aspects of Buddhism, but he kind of renounced and he's a vegan activist. His name is Abbas Laciel. I don't know if you've ever
check him out. No, I've never heard of him.
He's an interesting guy. Like he sometimes says things that I wholeheartedly disagree with. Like I don't disagree with most of what he has to say about veganism. I'll admit I'm not a vegan, but I might be one day, because I don't know. I do think that I like to reduce
your carbon footprint.
Carbon footprint, harm that I do in the world. I do like animals and whatnot. I won't go way into why I'm not right now. But like he talks about a whole variety of subjects. He's actually just a really smart guy. He's also someone who has done a lot of like he's lived in Laos and Thailand and a lot of
that's cool.
He's very up on history. I think he has a few degrees, and I think one of them is in like third world history and or so something like that. Anyway, my point is that he used to be, as a matter of fact, he started YouTube as sort of like, he had a very popular Buddhist channel, and he would like do videos. He's erased that channel, but he would do videos in like, I don't know, Buddhist garb and stuff like that.
Oh, so he had like the monk outfit and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember those videos from like back in the day. Like I maybe there were other Buddhists that were popular, but I did not come across, for some reason I came across him, and then he renounced that stuff. There's still, like I said, elements of Buddhism that he finds comforting, but he like just overall kind of he's like an atheistic Buddhist, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does, because Buddhism is an atheistic religion inherently. But I'm guessing he was a Theravada Buddhist, especially if he's hanging around Southeast Asia.
I don't know. But anyway, yeah, check him out. He's worth listening to. Every now and then you're like, fuck this, but he's, you know.
I definitely will. You'll have to send me the link afterwards. The what was his name again? Abbas
Laciel. It's that's French. EAS. I'll just send you the fucking
Yeah,
link.
that sounds cool.
But
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Nichiren Buddhist via SGI, and we pretty much have zero supernatural beliefs, though it can sometimes look, especially some looking from the outside, like we might have some. Like, what I would recommend, honestly, if you're interested in the subject, I did a modern day debate on the afterlife, and it was me, as myself being a Buddhist, against a Christian, like a Southern Baptist pastor from oh shit, what country is he? From a Southeast Asian country. I'm blanking on the name. His name's Pastor Mark Tan, and T-Jump, arguing for the atheist position. And it was actually like a really fascinating three-way debate. It's one of the better ones that I've been involved in. I don't think a lot of people saw it.
Yeah, T-Jump's interesting. I've enjoyed his debates, and then I saw the debate he did on, I don't know, I guess it's just
the Black Lives Matter one.
Disagreement on Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, that was really bad.
Yeah. Hey, the way that I look at it, I mean, I really do not like his outlook on that. But the way that I look at it is that most people who have things that are worth listening to, if you listen to everything that they have to say about everything, sooner or later, they're going to piss you off. Most of the time. It's very rare that someone does not. So I don't know. I try. That's the nicest thing that I can say about. I mean, otherwise, I've enjoyed his input in the debates that I've seen him do.
Yeah. Well, he bought a copy of my comic book, so that's how easy I can be bought.
Right.
But yeah, no, but I would check it out if you get a chance to. So we're way off topic here, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about like your channel, your experience, because you do some really like cutting edge art, in my opinion. Like not just like from a commentary perspective, because like you work stuff in where you're talking about current events, and you're talking about anything from like web drama with Sargon of Akkad, who I have debated. Yeah, interestingly enough, my debate with Sargon went better than I expected it would. Like,
I've seen a few of your debates. I am pretty sure I probably saw that because I don't know. I like to see, I like to see him getting his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
and I at this point, I think I've seen you debate at least 3 or 4 times, so I forget if I've seen that particular one. Yeah.
It was so cool, by the way, that like when I reached out to you, you knew who I was and stuff. I was really tickled there.
Yeah, I didn't know who you were at first because I just didn't look at your profile very closely. But then I realized, oh, it's that guy, and he's a very good debater. And then I also remembered in one particular debate you were talking about your history of martial arts, and I think that's pretty fucking cool. I mean, I am not anyone who has practiced martial arts, but I'm a huge martial arts fan, at least in terms of cinema. So, which I know is different than
no. I freaking love kung fu movies. I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't into martial arts cinema and anime and shit.
Yeah, I love martial arts in all different capacities. I mean, everything from actual masterpieces, like I don't know. I mean, it depends what you think of as a masterpiece. But like the everything from Crouching Tiger to I don't know if you've heard of like Lady Snowblood. And
I have not. That sounds amazing though. Lady Snowblood.
Well, yeah. Oh man, I love. There's a whole bunch of these movies. I mean, that's getting into stuff that was made in like the 70s. There's a lot of really amazing cinema that came out of the martial arts scene especially in the 70s and early 80s. The Zatoichi, which is this there's another name for it, like Zatoichi is the kind of Japanese name, but I think it's called Lone Wolf and Cub in it's like this blind karate master who is constantly transporting this baby in a carriage and protecting it. And I mean, a lot of those movies are fantastic. But then I love stuff like Street Fighter. And I'm not talking about Street Fighter, the video game. I'm talking about, I'm trying to remember his fucking name.
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
No, not Jean-Claude Van Damme. Because that's the video game movie. It's, oh God, you know, if I had a little sake earlier, so but he's way more old school than Jean-Claude Van Damme. I just won't remember his name off the top of my head.
I'll figure it out. In my opinion, by the way, very underrated movie, one of the best kung fu movies of all time. In my opinion, is Jet Li's Fist of Legend, which is
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's the Jet Li remake of Bruce Lee's The Chinese Connection.
Yeah,
I freaking love that film. Like, and it's been years since I've seen it, so maybe I'll go back and I'll be like, ooh, but like, it has some phenomenal action in it, and they do a really good job of building like the stakes and the tension, and like, one of the things that unfortunately a lot of martial arts suffer from is that they're written by martial artists and they don't tell a story as well.
Sonny Chiba is the person who I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Sonny Chiba.
he made a few films, like I think it's a trilogy and they're not necessarily they're masterpieces only because he is so. I mean, to me, he's aside from maybe Jet Li. I mean, no. Jet Li is amazing, but Jet Li has this chill to him. And for me, Sonny Chiba and Bruce Lee are the most I guess you could say, charismatic figures that I've seen on screen. I mean, they're just constantly like, whoa! You know? And I think Sonny Chiba was very influenced by Bruce Lee. And so I don't know. I can appreciate all that shit. I can also appreciate like just to some degree just like Z quality old school Japanese or you know a Hong Kong flicks and stuff like that. It's really interesting. I won't go way into it because it's sort of a tangent, but there's a really interesting documentary that I would recommend on. I forget the name of it, but I'm sure if you just put in some keywords, you could find it, and it traces the connections between. Well, it mostly talks about Asian cinema or martial arts cinema, but it makes a huge connection between that and hip hop. And it's really interesting. You know, kind of like the intersections there.
I would love to check that out. I'll hit you back at you. The thing you might want to look at also, and this is more on the fighting end, but are you familiar with Chapo Trap House?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, there's a 6-part miniseries done by one of the Chapo hosts. I think it's Felix.
Yeah.
Called Fighting in the Age of Loneliness.
Okay.
And it talks about like politics and the rise of the UFC and the rise of Trump and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like I would definitely check that out, and it's free on YouTube.
Does he talk about? Is it because this is something that I've been fascinated with recently. There's a movie that I think is somewhat underrated that didn't get distributed in the way it should have because Trump had a problem with it and it got shelved for a while, but it was called the oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of it. Tim Pool also had something with the Hunt.
Right.
And the reason why I bring it up is that to me, I really enjoy that film. A lot of people disliked it. I think it makes a very effective, simple metaphor, which is that in a lot of ways, politics is like sports. And so my question to you is that what he's getting at with this series? Or
this one's more of So they're sort of talking about the fact that the people who fight in the UFC are weirdos that don't fit in the rest of society, appealing to other weirdos that don't fit in with the rest of society. And they kind of put the UFC in and the rise of Ultimate Fighting in the context of like our constantly decomposing neoliberal economy. Yeah, so it's almost like it's almost a Marxist analysis, though I don't think he's Marxist. So like I wouldn't say that this is strictly a Marxist analysis, whereas more it's like they're looking at the conditions that people are living in that are causing the things that are happening. So you can feel almost a little like if you were very smart and you'd never heard of dialectical materialism, you might come up with your own weird version of dialectical materialism while talking about the rise of the UFC, if that makes sense.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely check that out. I've only heard Chapo talk in depth about pop culture in one thing. They have a great thing where they interview. Do they interview? But no. They don't interview Paul Verhoeven, but they had a screening of Starship Troopers, and then they kind of break down the film, and I really enjoy what they have to say. But hey, let's do this since like I can still stick around for a bit longer. I don't want to be full of myself, but let's talk more about my channel.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, I was like, wait, okay.
Yeah, this is all fascinating, and I love talking about all these things. But you wanted to talk about it, so why don't we discuss that?
So like what I was saying was, I think you create some really, really interesting, really cutting edge art with Creationist Cat, and like with the surreal approach you take to these. So I mean, I guess the first thing was like, what was sort of like, you mentioned your influences of Adult Swim, but like, where did this come from? The idea to have your cat be the main character of the channel and to have him be a creationist?
Well, okay. There's a few things that I'll explain. First of all, like I believe I said, maybe I didn't, we are going to be rebranding the channel sometime soon, and CC will still occasionally pop up, but I'm going like the next video that we have on the channel, there's going to be more like the channel is not rebranded at this point, but there's like I basically CC is not in the next video. The video after that will feature CC, and he'll be around. But when I first started CC, I was very influenced by a lot of atheist creators who were on YouTube, and a lot of people don't realize this because the atheist scene has become, I mean, perhaps it was always more toxic than I realized, but it's gotten way more toxic over like just increasingly more and more right leaning. And it's funny because when this started happening, I have some friends who I've talked to about this. I remember like somewhere around 2017 having a conversation with someone who said something to the effect of like, man, if you told me 1 year ago that the atheist scene was going to be shitting out all these far right wingers, I would have been like, get the fuck out of here. But that's what they're doing, you know? I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't anyone who, like, there are people still who hold down the fort, but they're few and far between, and you don't just see this on YouTube. This is very reflected in popular atheism.
And was that motivating the rebrand, that you kind of wanted to distance yourself from some of these people?
It is somewhat. I mean, really, more than anything, I go more with what I want to do artistically. That's really at the end of the day what guides me the most. But that being said, yeah, I do want to distance I'm going to do a video, honestly, about what the hell, and when I say the hell, I mean like more the hellish experience it was to be within, because this is the thing, you know, like I'll just admit it. There was this portion of time where I've always been a pretty left-wing person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole scene that was around me started slowly, and then just kind of, it was an avalanche. It got more and more right wing, and at first I didn't recognize it properly, because I was living at the time, like I'm from New York, but I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
living in New York at the time that all this anti SJW bullshit was going on.
Yeah.
And at first it was just so pervasive that I did know, like, okay, a lot of these creators, I don't like the way that they're talking about this stuff. I do believe in fundamental ideas of feminism and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, but maybe like this is what everybody's saying. This is what I'm seeing. Maybe like culture has shifted a little bit, and I kind of thought like, okay, maybe it would be good to hold. This is very brief. This is a very brief portion of my career on YouTube. I thought like maybe it would be good to hold a mirror up, like, you know, like my side should be able to better itself if
Mm-hmm.
if it's really, and then I very quickly realized, okay, no, there's always been people like this. You know, the people that they're pointing to and making fun of. It's a lot of cherry picking, and they're using this stuff. There's just as many fucking idiots, more
Yeah.
so, I think, on the right. And what they're doing is most of the time they're either completely like, you know, straw manning people and cherry picking people and whatnot, or finding people like having like freakouts on the street and whatnot like that. Like everybody has moments like that, and they were holding these up as examples, and the right was jumping on that shit. You know, I mean, honestly, I really do think that there was some sort of, I mean, like, I don't think it's as conspiratorial as it might sound, but if, like, for instance, Milo Yiannopoulos, if you
Mm-hmm.
look at his career, he literally, 1 month before he jumped onto the Gamergate bandwagon, he
Mm-hmm.
was writing articles. Like, he had written an article about who's that shooter, who that young male shooter in California who was like an incel. Do you know who I'm
Oh,
talking about?
Roger.
Yeah, Elliot Rodger. He wrote articles talking about how video games were to blame for Elliot Rodgers going on this killing spree. And then literally about a month later, maybe even less than a month later, he was writing all these articles just blowing smoke up the ass of gamers.
Yeah.
And I truly think, I don't know if it was him. I have a, because you know who the editor of Breitbart was at the time. It was
Yeah.
Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon,
Melted wax candle fascist Steve Bannon.
yes, yes. And even though that Steve Bannon is kind of almost pure evil,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's in many ways an excessively intelligent man.
Yep.
And this is just my theory. I have no way to know it, but I think he saw it and he was like, you know what? We can use this. Culture wars. We can fucking use this. And and it was very effective. And if you look at the like fabric of YouTube at the time, people like Steven Crowder is still like, if you look at his videos, he was talking about Christianity way more. If you look at Paul Joseph Watson's videos, he was talking about the Illuminati and like satanic bullshit and like Illuminati symbolism in Joseph Timberlake videos and shit like that. And within about a year, all these people, Mark Dice, I mean, tons of people. Sargon was always on this train, but like all of a sudden they shifted gears and they were like, okay, we'll use SJWs, we'll use feminism, we'll use all these things to attack the right and make us look like the cool guys. And it was very effective. And I realized it fairly quickly. I mean, not as quickly as I wish I had. I wish I had never kind of like fallen for it at all. Like I didn't really make, if you look at my videos that were anti-SJW, like I think that you'd agree that they're like all sort of fair game. Like I never really made videos that were malicious or really bad faith, but like I didn't make that many, but I made like videos about like I don't know if you've ever seen feminist slam poetry, stuff like that.
I have seen feminist slam poetry, and yeah, I can.
Pretty cringe, right?
Yeah, very cringe usually.
Very, very cringe. But the thing is that I was like, you know what? Even though that this stuff is somewhat harmless, I don't want to add to this dog pile. You know? And what happened is that it became so within the community that I was in, and you have like this is what I do for a living. It just became, for a too long a period, maybe like a year or two, just out of, it just was not cool to like side with the SJWs, and so for a while I felt like I couldn't really say all that I thought. And what happened was this: I had I was slowly starting to, like, because just the worse and worse things got, the more that I would kind of speak up. And I made this video about Sargon of Akkad that I wanted it to get under his skin, but I didn't want it to be like too, because I knew, again, like that we had so many overlapping fans, and to like really say like, hey, fuck you, Sargon, this guy sucks. I knew that would like alienate a lot of my audience, but I still thought I could make something that pissed him off. And unfortunately, even though that I was just making fun of him the entire time, he said he loved it. He was like, oh, bravo, this is hysterical. And I was like, oh, fuck, I didn't want you to like this.
Yeah.
And then, but then I continued speaking up. I started seeing like all these people praising people like Paul Joseph Watson and Steven Crowder, and I started calling morons like that out. Some of those people like went full alt-right after that, and I was just sort of like, okay, like I made a video called something like Skepticism 3.0, or no, Behold the Future of Skepticism. And I talked about how all these YouTube skeptics were not skeptical at all. I mean, like now the word, in my opinion, like I look at it differently now, because again, I had at that time, I had some sort of, I don't know, I cared or had some sort of faith in the concept of skepticism. And now I think it's been so damaged that it will take, it's either permanently damaged or it will take like just decades to like
overcome that. Well, the thing that because I spent several years in New York. I lived in New York for 10 years. Several of my early ones I spent. Are you still there?
Yeah,
yeah. You like paused perfectly, so I was. I thought the video had frozen.
Sorry.
So I spent several years as a atheist, and I was inspired by Christopher Hitchens. Because, and at the time I was reacting against, like I had lived in Kentucky before that, and it was a tiny town where like the second question out of everyone's mouth after like, what's your name, is you been saved? And like you had George Bush, where he started the Iraq War, and he said God wanted him to be president. And it seemed that the new atheists were pushing back against this. But what I didn't realize,
that's the thing. A lot of people see the like where atheism is right now, and understandably, I don't think that they get that the very roots of the atheist movement on YouTube was one. I'm not saying that it was super left wing in terms of like if you're a real like lefty, it was pretty kind of like centristy left, but it was still left wing. It was socially very progressive. Um, and it was also important because the fact of the matter is that there were all of these really disgusting, in my opinion, religious fundamentalists who were preaching very anti-LGBT, you're gonna burn in hell kind of shit.
Yeah. Remember the Westboro Baptist Church?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's probably the worst example of things, but there's, it's a gradient in between there, and there's a lot of still horrible stuff that's not the Westboro Baptist Church, and that stuff really needed to be pushed against. And it's funny because those people still exist on YouTube, but they just don't engage as much. Like, I think that that Christians, for the most part, there's some that will, but for the most part, the like popular Christians on YouTube realized, okay, we can't engage with these people because if we do, we're just going to get our asses handed to us. And it was important to push back against that. It did. For a brief time, I think it did do some good, and there were a lot of people who had religious upbringings that, and maybe this continues to happen, I'm sure it does to some degree. There are people who find new atheist creators. It's unfortunate though, because again, I feel like the whole scene is so right wing that even people who are considered left wing are kind of have either they have right wing takes or they have to, like, in order to get big in that, like I've had a few atheist content creators who are big on YouTube, who have become my patron, and they wrote to me and they've said things like, hey, I want you to know I really like your channel, but please don't tell people that I'm supporting you, because it like, no offense, it wouldn't be good for my business. And
I've heard a lot of that a lot of these creators have kind of created this reactionary audience around themselves, and it's like more the mob is in command of what they talk about because of their financial prospects.
Yes, and there's just there's a lot of things that I want to distance myself from the atheist community for. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I just in general, I'm not a fan of religion, but at the same time, I don't deny that there can be really wonderful Christians, Muslims, what have you. Certainly, I prefer when they are not like kind of, when they're secular and they're not trying to like enforce their beliefs on others. But I also think as someone who's definitely on the left, I don't want to alienate anyone, because I think that we need like as many people as we can get in order to succeed. And there's just, I mean certainly there are people who blur the lines between there's people who blur the lines between effective criticism of religion and just like hatred, and then there are people who don't even blur the lines. They just cross over into, and it happens more, even though that it happens definitely with Christianity. I think it's worse with Islam, because I mean, again, it's like I'll be the first one to say, yeah, of course there's especially in the Middle East itself, lots of strains of Islam that are just horribly destructive. But then at the same time, like, I've had friends who like, I mean, not that I would have cared if I had known, but that I did not know for years that they were Muslims, and they just I don't know, they never made it like, they never tried to convert me, and it's not like you know what, somebody can even be a more overtly practicing Muslim and still be a cool person. It just, I don't know, it really
I feel like this is, interestingly enough, it's weird that I keep bringing up Marx on this because I'm an anarchist. I'm not a Marxist, but Karl Marx has this great quote, which is, "Man makes religion, religion does not make man." And I really feel like a lot of people don't seem to realize that. At least the way I look at religion is, a person is always going to pick and choose from their holy books whatever they want. And their outward religion is an expression of their inward state and their inward values. So, and they pretend like it's the other way around. And so, like, I feel like there's this really crappy analysis where people are like, oh, folks will get this idea in their heads and run around and act on it. When I feel more what's happening is less a person is possessed by bad ideas, be they religious or political, and more a person internally is in a very negative state.
I agree completely. And I mean, I do think that if you're part of a, like, you know, a particular brand of, like, if you're born into Westboro Baptist Church, it's going to be difficult for you to kind of but there are those who have left that church and have been like, fuck this. And but you know what, to get back to your original question, which you asked a very long time ago, the way that I started CC is that, one, just in terms of developing the character, I always talk to my cat, or my cats, in that dumb voice, or a variation of that voice. And I just, I wanted to create a channel, and I also thought, you know, this is, and it's funny to me that I thought this at the time because of how things have changed so much, but I thought, you know, I have left-wing politics, and there are all these issues surrounding religion that I can kind of explore. And then also, I think, just at least getting people to shed very fundamentalistic, is that a word? Christian beliefs, that will, it can result in them sometimes coming to the left, or at least I thought so at the time. And so that was kind of the impetus, because I've always been a fan of political comedy, and I wanted, and I just enjoyed atheist topics at that point. So I thought, like, okay, what is something that would distinguish this channel from other channels that are out there? And I thought, okay, a cat. And, you know, I have a comedy background, so I knew that I could do, you know, make something funnier than most of what was out there at the time. And yeah, I went from there. And then somewhere, I guess it was probably around 2017, I started, or maybe even 2016-ish. I always had some subjects every now and then, like I would talk about Holocaust denialism. I also had some, we were like my debate yesterday. I've had some videos on 9/11 conspiracy theories, various conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Every now and then I dabble in things that weren't strictly like Christian or atheist related. But around 2017, I just started feeling like it was a combination of, I had kind of said what I wanted to say on those topics, but I also started wanting to differentiate myself from things. And then I had a YouTuber who I was friends with at the time. And funny enough, I'm friends with now. He regrets making this video. He regrets making several videos that he made at the time. I won't name him just because I don't know. I don't feel like it's necessary. But he made this video that was very popular at the time that was all about how the scourge of the SJWs. And he I revolved. I was like basically the person who he discussed throughout the video.
Oh, jeez.
And actually, I mean, again, like we've since become friends, and he's had some experiences that has made him kind of rethink a lot of his older thoughts on certain subjects. But he at the time was a big fan of Sargon of Akkad, and he would have these private conversations with myself and other people, and I always voiced that I just thought Sargon was this dipshit. And he at the time, and all of these other guys that we would talk to were fans of Sargon. So he made this video where not only was he saying that like Vadim is a secret SJW, and he was right. He was right. I was just like, because what was happening is that more and more, I was like mingling with people who were known as SJWs on Twitter and stuff like that. Cause I was just like, oh man, like just this whole scene is not who I am. And I'm not being authentic to myself. You know, I hated that. I really always wanted to kind of come out and be more, you have to understand there was no left tube at the time.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Sean and I mean, really the first was ContraPoints. And there are two things that I've been wrong about more than anything on YouTube. The first is when I first saw Sargon. When I first saw Sargon, it was his famous Elliot Rodger video where he was blaming Lacey Green and feminism for the Elliot Rodger shooting.
Jeez.
And I said to myself, this guy is never going to take off. And so I was incredibly wrong about that. And then I was very fortunate to be wrong about ContraPoints. I saw ContraPoints and I immediately loved her videos and thought, oh, I'm really glad that there is at least one person out there who's just has, and I hope this doesn't come off as like, you know, gendered in the wrong way. But metaphorically, her videos had balls, you know?
Yeah,
like, you know? So I hope you,
No, you're fine.
Insulting. So I saw that and I was like, this is amazing. They're never going to take off. And I'm so glad to be wrong about that. but that community, that's where YouTube was, that I would think such a thing. And so what happened was that this video was published, and I immediately lost, because of that video, somewhere around 8,000 subscribers. And I was only at around a little over 60,000. And then both Sargon within the same month and this guy named Bering, who's a dipshit, made videos about me, and that polished off like another 4,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And, yeah. So it was like, I just, in retrospect, it was a good thing because it purged
it purged your audience of chuds.
Exactly. But it in other ways, it was difficult because and I still to this day am making less money. I'm making a little bit more than I was for a little while, but I'm still not making what I was. And my videos were still like, I don't have the growth. I was growing at like the rate of somewhere like 1,000 a month was small for me. Usually it was anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000 a month for about like 6 months. And then this happened and total standstill. But what that allowed me to do is that allowed me to say, fuck it. I can now just be exactly who I am. And without feeling like I am going to alienate the subscriber base that follows me, and as part of my Patreon and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I evolved to
the point where you're at now.
Political direction. And the last thing I'll say is that, like I believe I briefly mentioned, I am going to make, when I switch to Hey, It's Vadim, I'm going to make sort of a very personal video. I think it'll still be funny, but a personal video about my personal experience, about what a hellish experience it was to, one, see this community just swing to the right, and two, also to see skepticism, which I cared about at the time. I thought at one time it was a tool that could be utilized by the general public in order to better itself. And I thought that was happening because the way, like, early YouTube atheists were, before it was really like commodified and became like something that people made a lot of money from. People would talk about things like logical fallacies. They'd talk about other things like homeopathy and anti-vaccine stuff. There are still people who do that every now and then, but you see it less. And basically, they would tackle all of these just untrue beliefs, and I think that there's a great deal of value in that. I think
I would definitely agree with that. Now, not to interrupt you, but you did mention you had a hard exit at 90 minutes in, and we are at 90 minutes in. So do you want to plug your pluggables?
Yeah, I guess I could do that. I don't have to have a hard exit, but if you have a hard exit, we can do that.
We can see where things will go. My wife will eventually get annoyed if I don't come out. But
yeah, I understand. We should probably wrap things up just in the interest of making this a digestible video.
Yeah. Now, what I'd also like, if you'd be interested, and I would love to have you back on after you've launched the new channel, and
Sure.
you've got the new video up. Because, dude, this was a fascinating talk. Like, we were all over the place, and I apologize because my ADD sends me.
I'm there with you. I do the same. So yeah, pluggables. Right now, the channel is called Creationist Cat. You can find it easily by searching that in YouTube. We're going to be dropping a video tomorrow, so I think that should be fun for everyone on Mr. Argon of Akkad.
I'm looking forward to it.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm it's really at Vadim Newquist, but since that's very difficult for, I don't know, I don't want to spell that out. People aren't going to get that. Hey, it's Vadim. Look up Hey, it's Vadim. It's VADIM. V is in victory, ADIM. And yeah, I mean, you can also search at Creationist Cat, but I don't tweet very often, or CC doesn't tweet very often these days. So easier to look me up.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are in here, if you could like and subscribe to my channel, we're growing very fast, which I'm excited about. I'm glad I have the Vadim seal of approval here. And you can reach me. Just Google my name, Brenton Lengel. I'm literally the only one in the world. My Twitter is at Brenton Lengel, and for my comic book, Snow White Zombie Apocalypse, it is at Snow White Bones. Now, before I do let you go, there is a question for you in the chat from Omar Constantine. Vadim, where's the potato peeler you borrowed last month?
Potato peeler?
I don't know if that's a euphemism, or
I don't know if he's talking about my potato camera, or he's saying I look like a potato, or it's.
I thought he was like a neighbor that borrowed a potato peeler from you.
I don't know, man. It looks like most of my room is clean, but there's just there's just a ton of shit and like a mess over here. Just letting you guys know, I'm letting it all hang loose. So it's probably somewhere in this chaos.
Yeah. So some big takeaway, by the way, from the from what you're telling me here. And I look forward to seeing you in more debates, hopefully, at a modern day debate. And hopefully you will not be debating a completely crazy person next time. There was one thing that I find really inspiring about your story. And, you know, as a creator, as somebody that makes art, art at its best, in my opinion, in my theory is when it is a true expression of like who we are down at our core. And like what you've clearly had some issues with feeling negative pressure from the community to make you want to behave as someone that you're not. And the fact of the matter is that your work is going to be so much better and so much more fulfilling since you have broken free of that. And I've seen that. And so like, I'm really excited to see where this channel goes and like what you continue to create, because like I said, it's really brilliant stuff. And what I love is that you think about these things in a way, in a very off the wall kind of way that nobody else does, but you make it digestible to people.
I mean that. Well, you can go on. I enjoying being complimented so wonderfully. I mean, I'll be honest. You know, like I definitely care about politics and social issues and whatnot, but I look at myself first and foremost as an entertainer. Like I do care about activism and I want to better the world, but I actually, in spite of the fact that perhaps there is that angle to what I do, I feel like real activism is kind of being on the ground and kind of doing like informing people is a very important job, and hopefully I do that. But when I make my videos, I more than anything, I want to entertain people. I want to make them laugh, and I want to give them an experience that they can't get on any other channel, both comedically and artistically. I don't know if that sounds pretentious, but yeah, I mean, like I care about all angles. I care about what I'm saying, the images that you're seeing. I want all of those things to be distinctive. Like if it's not the best thing that you see on YouTube, that's fine, but I want it to feel different than anything you'll find on YouTube. That's what's most important.
Yeah. And it definitely is different. Awesome. Well, this has been Insurrection with Brenton Lengel, talking with Vadim. Check out the new channel. Hey, it's Vadim. And I will catch you guys on the flip side.
Yeah, just real quickly. Can I say one thing real quick?
Sure.
When we rebrand, it's going to be the same channel. I'm just going to be changing the name. So it's not like there will be a new channel to subscribe to or anything like that.
It's funny because when I changed my channel's name, I didn't realize that it would also change the address of the Gmail account that was attached to it. Oh. So like, So like originally my channel is just Brenton Lengel, but like it was because I used the email attached to it for like talking to like my relatives and stuff. So like for a while I was branded as like the friendly anarchist, and then I realized, oh my God, my whole family knows I'm an anarchist now.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I've never been good at shutting up, so it wasn't a huge issue, but it was funny how that happened. Anyway, dude, I look forward to your continued work. And I
just real quickly, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, dude, thank you for coming on. This was fascinating, and it went in a number of ways I didn't expect. All right. Catch you guys later.